The forest welcomed me back with a symphony of contradictions. Familiar, yet foreign. Comforting, yet menacing. Pine needles crunched beneath my boots as I approached the territory borders, releasing their sharp, resinous scent that had once meant home. Now it mingled with the metallic tang of fear rising in my throat. Night was falling, and the late autumn wind carried whispers through the trees, as if the forest itself was spreading news of my return. The rejected one is back, the wolfless one. The queen who couldn't shift. 5 years. 5 years since I'd been banished from Silver Crescent Pack, my childhood home, my birthright. 5 years since Frederick, my mate, my husband, my supposed eternal bond, had looked at me with those amber eyes growing cold as stone and declared me unworthy to stand beside him as alpha female. "You're not what the pack needs," he'd said, his voice eerily calm while his claws extended, drawing blood from my wrist where he gripped me. "A queen who can't shift is no queen at all." I touched the silver pendant hanging at my throat, my mother's final gift before she died. An intricate crescent moon cradling a wolf with its head thrown back in silent howl. She'd pressed it into my palm the night before she passed. "There's power in you that runs deeper than any of them know, Lucia," she'd whispered, her once vibrant eyes clouded with pain. "When the time comes, trust what's inside you, not what they see." I'd clutch that pendant every night in exile, tracing its contours until my fingertips memorized every ridge and valley. It remained my only tether to who I truly was, not the broken shell they believed me to be. The border stones loomed ahead, massive granite markers etched with ancient pack symbols. I stopped, my heart hammering against my ribs. Crossing this line would announce my presence to every wolf in Silver Crescent territory. They would feel the intrusion, and they would come. But I hadn't returned to hide. I stepped across the boundary, and the sensation was immediate, a ripple of energy washing through the earth beneath my feet, spreading outward like concentric circles in still water. I counted down in my head. 3, 2, 1. They emerged from the trees like shadows given form. 4 wolves, their fur silvered in the dying light. Muscles rippled beneath thick coats as they approached, teeth bared, growls vibrating the very air around us. I remained still, my gaze fixed ahead, refusing to lower my eyes as protocol demanded of those lower in rank. A shimmer of energy, and the largest wolf transformed. Where the beast had stood, a man now straightened to his full height, naked and unashamed as all shifters were after the change. Jonathan, Frederick's beta and childhood friend. His expression flickered between shock and something darker as he recognized me. "Lucia," he said, my name sounding like a curse in his mouth. "You dare return to lands you've been banished from?" "I've come to speak with Frederick," I replied, my voice steadier than I'd expected. "The Alpha owes me an audience." Jonathan's laugh held no humor. "You speak as if you have rights here. You're nothing to this pack. Less than nothing. A liability we shed years ago." The words were designed to cut, to make me bleed without breaking skin. Once, they would have succeeded. But 5 years carving out survival in the human world had hardened the soft parts of me. "Take me to Frederick," I repeated. "Or shall I find my way to the pack house myself and tell everyone how the mighty beta was too frightened to face a wolfless woman?" His hand struck like lightning, catching me across the cheek with enough force to snap my head sideways. The taste of copper flooded my mouth. I turned back slowly, meeting his gaze, and smiled, feeling blood stain my teeth crimson. Something flickered in his eyes, unease perhaps. He'd expected tears, submission. The woman he remembered would have given him both. "Restrain her," he ordered the others, who had shifted to human form during our exchange. "The Alpha will decide what to do with this intrusion." Rough hands seized my arms, twisting them behind my back. I didn't resist. This was always how it would begin. To reach Frederick, I needed to appear harmless, broken. Let them believe I was still the same frightened girl they'd cast out. They marched me through familiar paths now overgrown, past sentinel trees that had once seemed protective but now loomed like silent judges. The forest opened to reveal Silver Crescent's central clearing and the sprawling pack house, larger than I remembered, with new wings extending from the main structure. Evidence of prosperity. Evidence of Frederick's success without me. Pack members emerged from cabins and the main house as word of my capture spread. Faces I'd grown up with stared with expressions ranging from shock to disgust to pity. Children too young to remember me were hustled inside, as if my wolflessness might be contagious. What is she doing here? How dare she come back? Poor thing looks half-starved. Once rejected, always rejected. Their whispers sliced through the evening air, sharp as any knife. I kept my gaze forward, my steps measured. My mother's pendant burned against my skin, a small, comforting heat, and then the crowd parted, and there he stood, Frederick. 5 years had only enhanced what had drawn me to him since childhood. Tall and imposing, with shoulders broadened by responsibility and success, dark hair swept back from a face that combined beauty and brutality in equal measure. Power radiated from him like heat from a flame. His eyes, those amber eyes I'd once dreamed of drowning in, narrowed as they fell on me. "Well," he said, his voice deeper than I remembered, resonating in my bones. "The prodigal mate returns." Something inside me trembled, not with fear, but with a strange anticipation. Meeting him again was like standing at the edge of a precipice, knowing the fall was coming, but not yet feeling the plunge. "Frederick," I said simply. His name in my mouth seemed to displease him. A muscle twitched in his jaw. "Release her," he ordered, and immediately the hands gripping my arms fell away. "She poses no threat to anyone here." The dismissal in his tone stung worse than Jonathan's slap. To be considered so inconsequential that even restraints were unnecessary, it was a calculated humiliation. Frederick approached, each step deliberate, until he stood close enough that I could smell him. Cedar and smoke and something wild beneath, the scent that had once been home, the scent that still, traitorously, made something in me respond. "Why have you returned, Lucia?" he asked, studying me as one might examine an insect, with detached curiosity. "There's nothing for you here." Around us, the pack gathered closer, hungry for drama, for the public dismantling of the woman who dared to return after rejection. I felt their collective breath, their anticipation. "I've come to reclaim what's mine," I said, the words dropping into sudden silence like stones into still water. For a heartbeat, Frederick's composure slipped. Surprise flickered across his features before the mask of alpha indifference returned. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Yours?" Frederick's laugh was sharp enough to cut. "You have nothing here. No position. No respect." His eyes raked over me dismissively. "Not even a wolf to call your own. I'm still your mate," I said quietly. "The moon goddess chose me for you." "That hasn't changed." Frederick's expression darkened. "The goddess made a mistake, one I corrected by rejecting you." He turned to address the watching pack. "This is what happens when someone can't accept their rightful place in the world. They cling to delusions." Laughter scattered through the crowd, nervous and cruel. I felt each chuckle like a physical blow, but remained standing, my gaze locked on Frederick. "Take her to the holding cells," he ordered Jonathan. "Tomorrow we'll decide what to do with her." Perhaps another banishment, this time with a more permanent reminder of her status. As Jonathan moved to seize me again, a voice cut through the murmurs of the crowd. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." The pack parted, revealing a man I'd never seen before. Tall and lean, with eyes so dark they appeared almost black in the fading light. Unlike the others, he wore the clothes of an outsider, worn jeans, a simple black t-shirt, and a leather jacket that had seen better days. His presence radiated a quiet confidence that seemed to disrupt the very air around him. Frederick's posture changed instantly, tension coiling through his body. "Who are you to give orders in my territory?" The stranger smiled, and something in that smile made my skin prickle with awareness. "My name is Neo," he said, his voice carrying easily across the clearing. "And Lucia is under my protection." Frederick's laugh was sharp. Protection? From what? Her own foolishness? His eyes narrowed. "You smell of wolf, but not of any pack I recognize." State your business here, stranger, before I have you removed. Neo's gaze slid to mine for the briefest moment, and in that glance, I felt a connection I couldn't explain, like recognizing someone I'd never met. My business, Neo said, returning his attention to Frederick, is ensuring that the true Alpha Queen of Silver Crescent receives the respect she deserves. The words fell like thunder in the clearing. I stared at Neo, as shocked as everyone else. How could this stranger know what I truly was? Frederick moved with the blinding speed of an alpha, crossing the distance between himself and Neo in a heartbeat, hand closing around the stranger's throat. You've made a grave mistake coming here, Frederick growled. Neo didn't struggle, didn't even seem concerned by the hand crushing his windpipe. Instead, he smiled again. That same unsettling smile, and something in Frederick's expression changed. He released Neo suddenly, stepping back, his face pale beneath his tan. Take them both to the cells, Frederick ordered, his voice unnaturally tight. Separate them, and post guards, wolf-blood guards, not newly turned. As hands seized me once more, I caught Neo's gaze. He winked, a gesture so incongruous with our situation that I almost laughed. Even as they dragged us in opposite directions, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 5 long years. Hope. They threw me into a cell beneath a pack house, a space I'd never known existed during my years as Frederick's mate. The stone walls wept with dampness, and the iron bars seemed designed for containing something far more dangerous than a wolfless woman. A single bulb cast sickly yellow light over the sparse interior, a metal cot with a thin mattress, a toilet with no privacy, and a sink that dripped continuously. As night deepened beyond the small, high window, I sat on the edge of the cot, fingers wrapped around my mother's pendant. Whatever came tomorrow, I would face it with the truth I'd discovered during my exile, the truth that Neo somehow knew, that Frederick clearly feared. I wasn't just returning to reclaim a mate who had rejected me, I was returning to claim a throne that had always been mine. Sleep came in fitful bursts, each awakening more disorienting than the last. The cell's damp chill had worked its way into my bones by morning. When footsteps echoed down the corridor, I sat up, smoothing my tangled hair and steeling myself. Whatever was coming, I would meet it with dignity. The lock rattled, and the door swung open to reveal Eliza, Frederick's sister. 5 years had softened her features but hardened her eyes. Once she'd been my closest friend in the pack. Now she regarded me like something that had crawled from beneath a stone. Frederick requires your presence, she said, her voice clipped and formal. No greeting, no acknowledgement of our shared past. And if I refuse? I asked, testing the waters. Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. Then you'll be dragged there instead of walking. Your choice. I stood, ignoring the stiffness in my limbs. How very generous of the Alpha. As Eliza led me up from the cells, I searched for any sign of Neo. The corridor stretched empty in both directions, other cells silent. Had Frederick separated us by more than mere distance? Where is he? I asked. The man who was with me. Eliza's shoulders tensed slightly. Focus on your own troubles, Lucia. You have plenty. We emerged into the main house, and memories assaulted me with every step. My first formal dinner as Frederick's chosen mate, dancing in the Great Hall during the winter solstice, quiet mornings in the library where I'd spent hours researching my condition, desperate to understand why I couldn't shift. The pack house had once been my domain, every corner familiar. Now it felt like walking through a dream where everything is slightly wrong, furniture rearranged, new artwork hanging where family portraits had been, and throughout it all, the scent of another woman. My steps faltered as the realization hit me. Frederick had taken another mate. Did you expect him to mourn you forever? Eliza asked, noticing my reaction. The pack needed an alpha female, one who could actually fulfill her duties. The barb found its mark, but I refused to show the wound. How convenient that the alpha's needs so perfectly aligned with his desires. Eliza stopped abruptly, turning to face me. For a moment, something like the old warmth flickered in her eyes. Lucia, listen to me. Frederick isn't the same man you remember. Whatever you came back for, revenge, closure, some misguided attempt to reclaim your position, it isn't worth your life. Take whatever deal he offers you and leave. Please. The genuine fear in her voice sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the basement's dampness. What has he done, Eliza? I asked quietly. What has your brother become? She glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. There have been challengers, wolves who questioned his methods. None survived to tell their stories. Before I could press further, a door at the end of the hallway opened, and Jonathan appeared. Eliza immediately straightened, her expression smoothing into neutrality. The Alpha is waiting, Jonathan said, his gaze cold as it swept over me. Bring her. Frederick's office had once been his father's, a testament to pack history with its walls of books and displayed artifacts from generations of Silver Crescent Alphas. Now it was transformed. Gone were the warm woods and leather, replaced with sleek, modern furnishings in chrome and glass. Cold, impersonal, calculated to intimidate. Frederick stood with his back to the door, staring out over the territory through floor-to-ceiling windows. Beside his desk stood a woman I didn't recognize, tall and striking, with flame-red hair cascading down her back. She turned as we entered, assessing me with eyes the color of glacial ice. So this is the famous Lucia, she said, her voice like silk over steel. I expected more. Frederick turned, and in daylight, the changes in him were more apparent. Success had hardened him, chiseled away any softness that might have once existed in his features. He wore power like a bespoke suit, tailored perfectly to his form. Victoria, meet my former mate, he said, the words precise as a surgeon's cuts. Lucia, meet my wife and Luna, the true alpha female of Silver Crescent. The introduction was designed to wound, but I refused to flinch. Instead, I studied Victoria, the way she positioned herself slightly behind Frederick's right shoulder, the calculated display of submission that concealed ambition. I recognized the performance because I had once played the same role. Congratulations, I said, meeting her gaze directly. I hope you found the position fulfilling. A flicker of annoyance crossed her perfect features. Frederick's mouth tightened. Leave us, he ordered, and Jonathan and Eliza withdrew immediately. Victoria hesitated, her hand briefly touching Frederick's arm in a gesture that was both possessive and questioning. You too, Frederick said. Softer, but no less commanding. Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly, but she obeyed, brushing past me with deliberate closeness, her scent, expensive perfume overlaying wolf, an aggressive marking of territory. When the door closed, Frederick circled his desk and sat, gesturing for me to take the chair opposite. I remained standing. Still stubborn, he observed. Some things never change. Where is Neo? I asked. Frederick's expression darkened. Your protector is being held securely. His fate, like yours, depends entirely on how this conversation proceeds. What do you want, Frederick? He leaned back, studying me with those amber eyes that had once made my heart race for entirely different reasons. Information, he said simply, starting with how you survived 5 years alone in the human world. Continuing with who this Neo is and what he meant by calling you the true Alpha Queen, and concluding with why you've really returned. I laughed, the sound brittle in the sterile room. You rejected me, exiled me, and now demand explanations? The entitlement of alphas truly knows no bounds. In a movement too fast for human eyes to track, Frederick was around the desk and inches from my face, his hand closing around my throat. Not squeezing, not yet, but the threat was clear. You forget your place, he growled, his pupils dilating slightly, wolf rising close to the surface. I met his gaze without flinching. My place? My place was beside you, Frederick, until you decided I wasn't worthy because I couldn't shift. His grip tightened fractionally. You were a liability, weak, unable to defend the pack or produce strong offspring. I did what was necessary for Silver Crescent's survival. You did what was convenient for your ambition, I countered. A wolfless mate was an embarrassment you couldn't tolerate. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he might actually kill me there in his pristine office. Then he released me suddenly, stepping back. You have no idea what I've built here. he said, gesturing to the window where the expanded pack grounds were visible. Silver Crescent is now the dominant pack in 3 states. Our numbers have tripled. Our territory has expanded. Our alliances... Built on what foundation? I interrupted. Fear? Eliza practically trembles in your presence. Your beta watches you like he's awaiting the next explosion. What kind of alpha rules through terror? Frederick's laugh was cold, an effective one. Power isn't maintained through kindness, Lucia. That was always your weakness, too soft, too compassionate. A true alpha makes the hard choices. Like torturing challengers until they break? I asked quietly. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps that I knew. Challengers receive what they earn. Weakness cannot be tolerated. And Neo, what has he earned? Frederick's expression shifted to something I couldn't quite read. Your protector is unusual. Not like any wolf I've encountered before. His scent is wrong. And the way he looked at me. He shook his head slightly. Who is he to you? It was my turn to smile. Why don't you ask him yourself? Frederick studied me for a long moment. I intend to, at length, after we conclude our business. The implication hung in the air between us. Interrogation that would quickly become torture. My hands clenched at my sides. What do you want from me, Frederick? I asked again. Tired of the circling. Leave, he said simply. Disappear. Never contact the pack again. Renounce any claim to being my mate. Formally before the pack council. Do these things, and both you and your mysterious friend can go free. The offer was suspiciously generous. Frederick wasn't known for mercy. And if I refuse? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Then Neo will suffer until you change your mind, and you'll watch every moment of it. My mother's pendant seemed to burn against my skin, a warning or a reminder. I touched it instinctively. Still clinging to that trinket, Frederick observed. Your mother was as delusional as you are. Always insisting you were special, that your inability to shift was because you were destined for something greater. His lip curled. She died still believing that lie. White-hot rage surged through me, and with it, the familiar burning beneath my skin. The sensation I'd spent years learning to control, not here. Not yet. I'll need time to consider your offer, I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. Frederick raised an eyebrow. Time? I'm offering you life, Lucia. Yours and Neo's. The alternative is pain beyond imagining. What is there to consider? Whether I believe you'll honor your word, I replied. Your track record isn't exactly trustworthy. His expression hardened. You have until sunset. After that, Neo's suffering begins. And don't harbor any illusions about escape. The entire pack is on alert, and Victoria's wolves are particularly enthusiastic about proving their loyalty. Victoria's wolves, Frederick smiled thinly. My mate brought her own pack members when we merged with Red Mountain. They're extremely devoted to their former alpha female. The pieces clicked into place. Frederick hadn't just taken a new mate, he'd absorbed another pack, doubling his power and resources. No wonder Silver Crescent had expanded so dramatically. And no wonder there was tension visible even through the carefully maintained facade. 2 packs merging always meant power struggles, competing loyalties. I want to see Neo, I said. Frederick considered this, then nodded. A reasonable request. Perhaps seeing him will help you make the right decision. He pressed a button on his desk, and moments later, Jonathan appeared at the door. Take her to see the prisoner, Frederick ordered, then return her to her cell. As Jonathan led me back down to the cells, my mind raced. Frederick was afraid of Neo, of what he represented, of what I might have become during my exile. Fear made him dangerous, but it also made him vulnerable, and vulnerability was something I could use. The holding area beneath the pack house was larger than I'd realized, with corridors branching in several directions. Jonathan led me past my cell to a heavy steel door at the corridor's end. He unlocked it, revealing a room that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just a cell, it was a torture chamber. Chains hung from the ceiling, their ends fitted with manacles. Various implements lined one wall, their purposes all too clear. And in the center, Secured to a metal chair with silver-infused restraints that would burn shifter skin, sat Neo. He looked up as we entered, and despite his situation, his face brightened when he saw me. "Ah, there she is," he said, as casually as if we'd met for coffee. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten me." The sight of him, seemingly unharmed but in such peril, made something twist painfully in my chest. "I'll give you 5 minutes," Jonathan said, stepping back but remaining in the doorway, watching. I approached Neo slowly, taking in the details of his restraints, the layout of the room, searching for any advantage. "Are you all right?" I asked quietly. Neo's dark eyes danced with amusement. "I've been in worse situations, though I must say, your ex-mate has quite the flair for dramatic accommodations. Despite everything, I found myself fighting a smile. You could have mentioned who you were before we walked into the pack, and missed the look on Frederick's face when I announced it. Not a chance." His expression sobered slightly. "Has he hurt you?" The concern in his voice was so genuine it caught me off guard. "No, not yet. He's offered us freedom if I formally renounce any claim to being his mate." Neo studied my face. "But you don't believe him, would you?" "Not for a second." Neo leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "Tonight is the full moon, Lucia. Do you remember what I told you?" I frowned. Neo and I had never spoken before yesterday. What was he? And then I understood. He was creating a narrative, feeding me information while making it seem like we had a history. Jonathan was listening to every word. "The full moon," I repeated softly. "When the veil is thinnest." Neo nodded, satisfaction in his eyes. "Exactly. Remember your mother's words." My hand went to the pendant automatically. "Trust what's inside you, not what they see." "Time's up," Jonathan announced. "Back to your cell, Lucia." As I turned to leave, Neo called after me. "Oh, and Lucia, remember what the old texts say about the midnight hour? When the moon reaches its zenith." Jonathan practically shoved me out of the room, locking the door behind us with more force than necessary. "What was that about?" he demanded as he marched me back to my cell. I shrugged, affecting confusion. "I have no idea. I'd never met him before yesterday." Jonathan's eyes narrowed in suspicion, but he said nothing more as he locked me in my cell once again. Alone, I sat on the edge of the cot, mind working furiously. The full moon, the midnight hour. Neo was giving me a timeline. Whatever was going to happen would occur tonight when the moon reached its highest point. But what? And how did Neo know about my mother's pendant, about the power I'd discovered during my exile? As the day wore on, I paced my small cell, aware of the sun's movement through the high window, counting down the hours until sunset when Frederick would demand my answer. By late afternoon, the sounds of activity above increased. Preparations for the full moon run, when the entire pack would shift and hunt together under moonlight. A ritual from which I had always been excluded. Tonight, however, would be different. Whatever Neo had planned, whatever destiny had brought us together, I knew with bone-deep certainty that by morning, Silver Crescent Pack would never be the same again. Sunset painted the cell walls with blood-red light as I waited for Frederick's summons. Each passing minute ratcheted my tension higher. The pack house above had fallen eerily silent, the calm before the storm of the full moon run. When footsteps finally approached, they were lighter than Jonathan's heavy tread. The lock turned, and the door swung open to reveal not Frederick or one of his guards, but Victoria. She entered with the confident grace of a predator, her red hair now pulled back in a severe braid. Gone was the elegant outfit from this morning, replaced by practical leather pants and a fitted jacket, clothing designed for shifting. "Hello, Lucia," she said, her voice pleasant but her eyes cold. "I thought we should have a chat, woman to woman, before tonight's festivities." I remained seated on the cot, refusing to stand in her presence as pack protocol demanded. "Does Frederick know you're here?" Her smile tightened slightly. "Frederick doesn't monitor my every move. Unlike you, I'm trusted." "How fortunate for you." Victoria paced the small cell, examining it with distaste. "Do you know what I wondered most when Frederick told me about you? How a woman could be so pathetic that she'd return to a man who rejected her. It's undignified." I smiled thinly. "Is that what he told you? That I've come crawling back to him, haven't you? Her ice blue eyes assessed me. A wolfless woman has few options in our world. No pack would take you in. Humans would never understand you. You're caught between worlds, belonging nowhere. The words struck closer to home than I cared to admit. The years of exile had been exactly that, a lonely existence between worlds, neither fully human nor accepted by wolfkind. What do you want, Victoria? She stopped pacing, standing directly before me. I want to understand what Frederick ever saw in you, what hold you still have over him that makes him offer mercy instead of the punishment you deserve for trespassing. Jealousy. How interesting. Perhaps you should ask your mate that question. Oh, I have, she said, her smile turning cruel. He says you were a youthful mistake, that he pitied you because of your condition. But I know men, Lucia, even alphas. They don't offer second chances to women who meant nothing. I stood slowly, bringing myself eye to eye with her, and that worries you. It intrigues me, she corrected. As does your mysterious friend. Neo, is it? He's quite the specimen. Not Frederick's usual type of challenger at all. You've spoken with him? Victoria's laugh was like breaking glass. Oh, we've done more than speak. Your protector has interesting tolerances for pain and interesting abilities. My blood chilled. If you've harmed him, relax. She cut me off with a dismissive wave. He's intact. For now, Frederick has plans for him after moonrise. She cocked her head, studying me. You care for him, a man you claim to have just met. I kept my expression carefully neutral. I care about needless suffering. Noble, she mocked, but nobility doesn't survive long in this world. Not anymore. She moved closer, her scent, wolf and something chemical, almost metallic, overwhelming in the small space. Here's what's really going to happen tonight, Lucia. You'll renounce your claim to Frederick as requested. Then, while the pack runs under the full moon, you and Neo will be escorted beyond our borders. Relief flickered through me, quickly doused by suspicion. That sounds remarkably reasonable. What's the catch? Victoria's smile was all predator. The escort will be comprised of my most loyal wolves, and their orders are simple. Once beyond Packlands, you won't continue your journey. The threat hung in the air between us, clear as crystal. Frederick agreed to this? To murder? Frederick doesn't need to know the details. He's content with the big picture. You gone, the threat neutralized, his position secure. She examined her perfectly manicured nails. He's a visionary, but sometimes lacks thoroughness. And you're supplying that thoroughness out of the goodness of your heart. Victoria laughed again. I'm protecting what's mine, as any alpha female would. She leaned close, her voice dropping to a near whisper. Did you really think you could waltz back after 5 years and reclaim your place? Frederick is mine now. Silver Crescent is mine, and I don't share. She straightened, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her jacket. The pack will gather at moonrise for the renunciation ceremony, then the run, and then... She let the implication hang after she left. Locking the door behind her, I pressed my forehead against the cool stone wall, breathing deeply. Victoria had just handed me vital information. The renunciation ceremony would take place before the run, gathering the entire pack in one location. Both Frederick and Victoria would be occupied with pack rituals, and most importantly, her loyalists would be tasked with our escort. A plan began forming in my mind. Dangerous, desperate, but with a sliver of possibility. If Neo had meant what I thought about the midnight hour, I just needed to buy us time until then. The cell door opened again an hour later. This time it was Eliza, her expression grim. It's time, she said simply. She led me not to Frederick's office, but to the great hall. As we walked, she kept her voice low. Whatever you're planning, don't. Frederick is too strong, and Victoria is more dangerous than you know. Just say the words, leave our territory, and never look back. You know they plan to kill us, I replied quietly. Eliza's steps faltered slightly before resuming. I suspected. Victoria's wolves are zealous in their devotion. Then help us. She shook her head minutely. I can't. My first loyalty must be to the pack. Is this pack worth your loyalty? What has it become under Frederick's rule? Her silence was answer enough. The great hall blazed with light, chandeliers reflecting off the polished wooden floors where I had once danced with Frederick at our mating ceremony. Now the space was arranged differently, chairs in concentric circles around a central platform. The pack council sat in the innermost ring, 12 elders whose approval legitimized the Alpha's rule. Frederick stood on the platform, resplendent in ceremonial leathers, his presence commanding every eye. Victoria stood slightly behind him, her flame-red hair now loose and flowing, a crimson waterfall against black leather. The picture of Alpha power, beautiful, terrible, complete. What caught my breath, however, was Neo. He knelt at the platform's edge, hands bound behind him, head forced down by a silver collar attached to a chain that Jonathan held like a leash. Despite this humiliation, Neo's posture remained somehow dignified, his body relaxed rather than defeated. The hall fell silent as Eliza led me forward. Hundreds of eyes followed our progress to the platform. Some faces showed pity, others contempt, but most displayed simple curiosity. Witnessing the return of their Alpha's rejected mate, a living piece of pack history most had only heard about in whispers. As I stepped onto the platform, Frederick extended his hand in a mockery of courtesy. I ignored it, taking my place beside Neo without touching our Alpha. "Lucia Romano," Frederick announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "Once bound to me by the goddess's will, comes before the pack to renounce all claims to the position of Luna, all ties to Silver Crescent Pack, and all bonds to me as her mate." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. My gaze swept over the gathered wolves, searching for potential allies, noting the divisions. Those who sat with straight backs and proud expressions were likely Victoria's Red Mountain wolves, while the Silver Crescent natives showed more reserved demeanors. Frederick continued, "This renunciation, once spoken, cannot be undone. The severance is permanent in the eyes of wolfkind and the goddess herself." He turned to me, amber eyes glinting in the chandelier light. "Lucia Romano, do you understand the terms of this renunciation?" I raised my chin, meeting his gaze directly. "I do." "And do you come here of your own free will to speak these words?" My eyes flickered to Neo, still kneeling, his dark gaze now locked on mine. The barest hint of a smile touched his lips, and he nodded almost imperceptibly. "I do," I answered, returning my attention to Frederick. Frederick gestured to one of the council elders, who approached with a ceremonial silver dagger on a velvet cushion. My heart skipped. I hadn't anticipated blood magic being part of this. "The renunciation must be sealed with blood," Frederick explained, his voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. "Your blood freely given, signifying the breaking of all bonds." He took the dagger, its blade gleaming wickedly in the light. "Repeat after me. I, Lucia Romano, hereby renounce all claims to Frederick Blackwood as my mate." I swallowed hard, aware of every eye upon me, of Neo's steady presence at my side, of the silver blade in Frederick's hand. "I, Lucia Romano," I began, my voice stronger than I felt. "Hereby—" I paused, heart hammering against my ribs. "Continue," Frederick commanded, his voice hardening. I looked directly into his eyes as I finished. "Reject Frederick Blackwood as unworthy of being my mate." Gasps erupted throughout the hall. Frederick's face darkened with fury. This was not the script. This was blasphemy in the eyes of wolfkind. For a female to reject a male alpha, especially publicly, was unheard of. "You dare," Frederick began, but I cut him off. "I dare speak truth before this pack," I said, my voice rising. "I reject a mate who abandoned his vows at the first sign of difficulty. I reject an alpha who rules through fear rather than respect. I reject a wolf who has forgotten the meaning of loyalty." Frederick's hand struck like lightning, the back of his palm connecting with my cheek hard enough to knock me sideways. I tasted blood but remained standing, refusing to fall. "Enough!" he roared. "Guards!" Jonathan and 2 others moved forward, but Neo suddenly stood, the silver collar somehow no longer around his neck, but dangling uselessly from Jonathan's hand. In the moment of confusion, Neo stepped between me and Frederick. "The ceremony isn't complete," Neo said calmly. "She has spoken her truth. Now you must acknowledge it before witnesses, as pack law demands." Frederick's eyes widened in disbelief. "How did you—" Pack law, Neo repeated, his voice carrying easily through the stunned silence. Even an alpha must abide by it, unless you've abandoned that tradition as well? The council members shifted uncomfortably. Pack law was sacred, older than any alpha's rule. To openly defy it would undermine Frederick's very legitimacy. Frederick's jaw clenched, rage emanating from him in almost visible waves. Very well, he bit out. I acknowledge Lucia Romano's rejection. His eyes promised retribution later. It changes nothing. She will still leave these lands tonight. As will you. Neo smiled, that same unsettling smile from our first meeting. Of course, after the moon run, as agreed, Victoria stepped forward, touching Frederick's arm in a gesture both soothing and possessive. The pack awaits the run, my love. Let's not allow this unpleasantness to disrupt our traditions. Frederick visibly regained control, smoothing his features into the mask of alpha authority once more. Indeed. He turned to address the assembled wolves. To the clearing. The moon rises, and Silver Crescent runs tonight. Cheers erupted as the tension broke. Pack members began filing out of the hall toward the massive clearing where the monthly ritual would begin. Frederick fixed me with a final glare. Jonathan, escort our guests to the border pavilion. Make sure they're comfortable until their departure after the run. The threat underlying his words was clear. Victoria leaned close to Jonathan, whispering instructions I couldn't hear. He nodded, his expression grim. As we were led away, I caught sight of Eliza watching us, her expression torn between duty and some deeper emotion I couldn't quite name. Our eyes met briefly before she turned away, following Frederick and Victoria toward the clearing. The border pavilion stood at the edge of pack territory, a structure built for diplomatic meetings with neighboring packs. Far enough from the main compound that screams wouldn't be heard, perfect for Victoria's plans. Jonathan and 4 others, all wearing the subtle red insignia of Victoria's original pack, escorted us inside. The pavilion consisted of a main meeting room with several smaller chambers branching off. They secured us in one of these side rooms, binding our hands with regular rope rather than silver, an overconfidence that might work in our favor. Comfortable? Jonathan sneered, shoving me onto a hard wooden bench. Don't worry, your accommodations will be even more permanent soon. Neo settled beside me, his body language relaxed despite our situation. Such hospitality, and here I thought Silver Crescent was known for its adherence to pack laws regarding guests. Jonathan's face darkened. You're not guests. You're intruders who should thank the Alpha for his mercy in allowing you to live until moonset. But will we? Neo asked pleasantly. Or does Victoria have other plans? The flash of surprise in Jonathan's eyes confirmed what we already knew. The Alpha's word is law, Jonathan said stiffly, but the conviction was missing from his voice. And which Alpha would that be? Neo pressed. Frederick or Victoria, Silver Crescent or Red Mountain? Loyalties seem complicated in this merged pack of yours. Jonathan stepped forward menacingly, but one of the other guards placed a restraining hand on his arm. Later, the guard murmured. When we're beyond borders. Jonathan glared at us one final time before exiting, the others following. The door locked with a decisive click, leaving Neo and I alone. That went well, Neo said cheerfully. I stared at him in disbelief. Well, Frederick wants us dead. Victoria has arranged our execution. We're bound and guarded by her loyal wolves, and the entire pack will be occupied with the moon run for hours. How exactly is this well? Neo twisted his wrists, and suddenly his hands were free, the ropes falling to the floor. He reached over and began working on my bindings. Because, he explained, his fingers deftly undoing the knots, everything is proceeding exactly as it should. As my hands came free, I rubbed my wrists, studying him with newfound wariness. Who are you, Neo? Really? He held my gaze, his dark eyes reflecting something ancient and knowing. I'm someone who recognized what you are the moment I saw you. Just as your mother did. My hand went automatically to the pendant. How do you know about my mother? Because she was like you, he said simply. A carrier of the old blood, a dormant line that awakens rarely but with Spectacular results when it does. The burning beneath my skin intensified at his words, as if something inside me responded to the truth of them. The midnight hour, I said quietly. What happens then? Neo glanced toward the window, where the rising moon was visible through the trees. The full moon at its zenith channels power like no other time. For ordinary wolves, it strengthens their shift, heightens their senses. For someone like you, his smile widened, it's the key that unlocks the door. To what? To what's been inside you all along. He nodded toward my pendant. Your mother knew. That's why she gave you her protection, why she told you to trust what's inside, not what they see. The pendant seemed to pulse against my skin, warm and alive. I've felt it, I admitted. For years, a burning under my skin, different from what the others described when they shifted. More intense. I thought it was just my body failing to complete the change. Not failing, Neo corrected. Waiting. For the right moment. The right catalyst. He glanced toward the moon again. We have hours yet before midnight. Time enough to prepare. Prepare how? We're locked in and guarded. Neo's expression turned serious for the first time. Lucia, listen carefully. When midnight comes, you're going to experience something few of our kind have ever known. It will be painful, disorienting, and powerful beyond measure. You need to be ready to control it, to direct it, or it will consume you. Fear and anticipation twisted together in my stomach. What will happen to me? You'll become what you were always meant to be, he said. The true Alpha Queen. Not just of Silver Crescent, but potentially of all the packs in this region. I shook my head in disbelief. That's impossible. I'm wolfless. You're not wolfless, he interrupted. You're something older than the wolves we know today. Something from the time when the boundaries between human and wolf were not so fixed. When the strongest could take multiple forms. When the bloodlines carried magic now forgotten. He took my hands in his touch electric on my skin. Your inability to shift into a normal wolf isn't a defect, Lucia. It's because you're meant for a different transformation altogether. The conviction in his voice made doubt impossible. Deep inside, in the place where the burning lived, I knew he spoke truth. How do you know all this? I asked. What are you? His smile turned enigmatic. Let's just say I'm a guardian of the old ways. I've waited a long time for someone like you to emerge. A sound from outside interrupted us. Voices approaching the pavilion. Neo released my hands and motioned for me to return to the bench, quickly replacing the ropes around our wrists in loose configurations that looked secure but could be slipped instantly. Whatever happens next, he whispered urgently, follow my lead. And remember, control the fire. Don't let it control you. The door burst open, and Jonathan entered with the 4 Red Mountain guards. His eyes were wild, his breathing heavy. Change of plans, he announced. Victoria wants it done now, before the pack is too deep in the run to notice your absence. One of the guards stepped forward, a cruel smile playing on his lips. Time to say goodbye, rejected queen. I glanced at Neo, who gave me an almost imperceptible nod. Whatever was coming, we would face it together. And if midnight was still hours away, we would simply have to survive until then. As they marched us out of the pavilion and into the dark forest beyond Packlands, I felt the burning beneath my skin intensify with each step, as if the growing distance from civilization was feeding something primal inside me. The moon bathed the forest in silver light, turning familiar paths into strange, shadowed corridors between ancient trees. I might not yet be what Neo believed I could become, but I was no longer the broken, rejected mate Frederick had cast out 5 years ago. Tonight, under this full moon, I would either find my true power or die trying, and if I fell, I would not fall alone. They marched us deep into the forest, far beyond the official boundaries of Silver Crescent territory. The moonlight filtered through swaying branches, casting moving shadows across the forest floor. No one spoke. The only sounds were our footsteps crushing fallen leaves, the occasional hoot of a distant owl, and the soft, rhythmic breathing of our captors. I counted our escort, Jonathan and the 4 Red Mountain guards, all keeping a careful distance from Neo despite his bound hands. Something about him unsettled them, wolf instincts sensing a predator even more dangerous than themselves. My mind raced, calculating options. The ceremonial moon run would keep most of the pack occupied for hours. Frederick and Victoria would be leading the hunt. Their attention focused on maintaining the complex pack dynamics between the merged groups. No help would come from that quarter, not that I expected any. Neo caught my eye, his expression calm despite our dire situation. A slight tilt of his head directed my attention to the moon, now higher in the sky but still hours from its zenith. We needed to buy time. "Where exactly are you taking us?" I asked, breaking the tense silence. Jonathan's jaw tightened. "Somewhere your bodies won't be found for a very long time." "Frederick approved this? Murder beyond Packlands?" "Frederick gave us jurisdiction to handle security threats," one of the Red Mountain Guards replied. "That's all you need to know." "Security threats," I repeated with a bitter laugh. "Is that what I am now? A wolfless female and a stranger?" "You were never just a wolfless female," Jonathan said, his voice unexpectedly serious. "Frederick knew it. That's why he feared you enough to exile you, rather than simply eliminating the problem." This revelation caught me off guard. He feared me? For what? I couldn't even shift. Jonathan gave me a sidelong glance. "There were incidents, things you did that couldn't be explained, things Frederick made the pack swear never to discuss." My mind flashed to fragments of memories I'd long suppressed. A fire that started without matches when hunters threatened me in the woods. A storm that appeared suddenly when Frederick and I had our first serious argument. Pack members backing away from me during moments of intense emotion, as if something about me had changed. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said. But uncertainty colored my voice. Neo spoke up, his tone conversational despite our circumstances. "The old blood often manifests in unpredictable ways before the true awakening. Memory lapses are common, self-preservation, you might say. The mind protecting itself until the body is ready." Jonathan stopped abruptly, turning to face Neo. "What do you know about the old blood?" Something passed between them, a current of recognition that surprised me. Did Jonathan know more than he'd let on? "Enough to recognize it when I see it," Neo replied. "Enough to know what happens when it fully awakens." His eyes flicked meaningfully to the moon. "Especially on nights like tonight." A flash of what looked like fear crossed Jonathan's face. He signaled to the others, "Pick up the pace. I want this done and us back before midnight." They hustled us forward with renewed urgency, deeper into the wilderness. The forest grew denser, older. The trees more massive and primal. We descended into a ravine where a small clearing opened up beside a swift-running stream. The perfect isolated spot for an execution. "Here," Jonathan announced. "This is where it ends." The guards shoved us to our knees in the center of the clearing. One produced a knife with a gleaming silver blade, designed to prevent healing in werewolves, ensuring a fatal wound. "Any last words?" he asked with a cruel smile. I gazed up at the moon, still climbing toward its apex. "Not enough time." "We needed more time. Just one question," I said, looking directly at Jonathan. "Does it bother you, betraying your own pack this way, following Victoria's orders instead of your true alphas?" Jonathan's expression hardened. "Frederick is my alpha, is he? Or has he become Victoria's puppet? The Frederick I knew would never authorize murder. He could be brutal, yes, but he believed in pack law, in honor." "You know nothing about who Frederick has become," Jonathan snapped, but doubt flickered in his eyes. "I know enough to see that Silver Crescent is fracturing under this merged leadership," I pressed. "How many original pack members have left or been eliminated? Since Victoria arrived, how many of your traditions have been set aside for Red Mountain ways?" One of the other guards stepped forward. "Enough talk." Victoria was clear. "We finish this quickly." He raised the silver knife, aiming for Neo's heart. In that split second, several things happened at once. Neo's hands were suddenly free, the ropes falling away as if they'd never been secured. Jonathan, in a shocking move, grabbed the arm of the guard with the knife, forcing it away from Neo, and inside me, the burning that had simmered for years exploded into an inferno that raced through every cell of my body. I screamed, not in fear but in agony as the fire consumed me from within. My vision blurred, the world dissolving into patterns of heat and light, Distantly, I heard shouting, the sounds of struggle, Neo's voice calling my name. But all of it was secondary to the transformation tearing through me. This wasn't like the shifting I'd witnessed countless times among pack members. This was something older, rawer, more fundamental. My bones weren't simply rearranging. They were remaking themselves from the molecular level. My skin didn't just stretch to accommodate a new form. It dissolved and regenerated with each passing second. The pain was beyond anything I'd imagined possible, and yet beneath it ran a current of wild exhilaration. I was being unmade and reborn all at once. Through the haze of transformation, I glimpsed Neo holding off 3 of the guards while Jonathan, inexplicably, fought alongside him against his own companions. The 4th guard rushed toward me, silver knife raised, sensing an opportunity in my vulnerable state. Something ancient and primal surged through me in response to the threat. My hand shot out, but it was no longer entirely human. Elongated fingers ending in obsidian claws caught the guard's wrist, stopping the knife inches from my heart. My grip tightened, bones cracking beneath my new strength, and the guard howled in pain, dropping the weapon. "Impossible," he gasped, staring at me with horror. "What are you?" I couldn't answer. Speech was beyond me as my throat and vocal cords continued their metamorphosis. Instead, I rose to my feet, my body still flowing between forms, neither fully human nor wolf, but something between and beyond both. The guard stumbled backward, terror plain on his face. "Lycan," he whispered. "She's a Lycan." The word meant nothing to me then, but the fear it inspired was unmistakable. The other guards disengaged from Neo, backing away, eyes wide with superstitious dread. "Run," Jonathan advised them, his own expression a mixture of awe and resignation. "Run now, while you still can." They didn't need to be told twice. They fled into the forest, their footsteps rapidly fading as they abandoned their mission without a backward glance. Jonathan remained, watching me with an expression I couldn't decipher. "I always suspected," he said quietly. "When we were children, there were signs. The way animals responded to you. The strange incidents. Frederick saw it too. It's why he chose you as his mate, initially, the power you might bring to his bloodline." My transformation continued, waves of pain and power coursing through me. Neo approached carefully, his movements slow and deliberate. "It's happening too soon," he said to Jonathan. "The moon hasn't reached its zenith. She's not ready." "Victoria's plan forced our hand," Jonathan replied. "I didn't know until tonight what they intended. I couldn't let them." He broke off, looking torn. "Frederick was my friend once, before Victoria, before power corrupted him. I owed him, and Lucia, this much at least." Neo knelt beside me as I convulsed with another wave of transformation. "Lucia, listen to me. You need to control it. Focus on my voice. The change is trying to happen all at once, but you need to guide it, shape it." Through the agony, I tried to concentrate on his words, to find some center of calm in the storm consuming me. The pendant at my throat burned like a brand, its silver growing molten against my skin, yet somehow not burning me. "Your mother's protection," Neo explained, noticing my hand clutch the pendant. "Use it. It's anchored to your human self. It will help you maintain control." I focused on the pendant, on the memory of my mother's final words. "Trust what's inside you, not what they see." Gradually, the wildfire of transformation began to respond to my will, the random mutations coalescing into something more deliberate, more controlled. "That's it," Neo encouraged. "Shape it. You're not becoming something else. You're becoming your true self." Minutes or hours passed, time losing meaning as I fought for control of my evolving form. When the last wave of transformation subsided, I rose to my feet, steady and sure in a body both familiar and utterly new. I was still recognizably myself, yet fundamentally changed. Taller, stronger, my senses preternaturally sharp. My hands ended in retractable claws. My teeth included elongated canines. And my eyes, when I caught my reflection in the stream, glowed with an inner amber light. Not human, not wolf, but something that encompassed and transcended both. "Lycan," I said, testing the word. my voice deeper and resonant with new power. That's what I am. Neo nodded. The original shapeshifters, ancestors to modern werewolves. Nearly extinct now, the bloodline dormant for generations, emerging only when circumstances align perfectly. He gestured to the moon, now nearing its highest point. The midnight hour of the full moon is when the transformation typically completes, but the danger you faced triggered it early. Jonathan kept a respectful distance, his posture submissive in a way I'd never seen from Frederick's arrogant beta. The legends say Lycans were the first alphas, the progenitors of all pack lines. They could control not just their own shifting, but influence the shifts of others. I flexed my new form, feeling the power coursing through me. What happens now? Neo's expression grew serious. That depends on you. A newly awakened Lycan has choices to make. You could leave, start your own pack elsewhere, build something new. Or, he glanced in the direction of Silver Crescent territory. Or I could return and challenge Frederick. I finished. It wouldn't be just Frederick, Jonathan warned. Victoria is the real threat. She brought dark magic with her from Red Mountain, rituals forbidden by traditional pack law. It's how she controls Frederick, how she's been consolidating power. This new information slotted into place alongside everything else I'd observed. Frederick's personality changes, the fear that permeated the pack, Victoria's unnatural confidence in her position. What kind of rituals? I asked. Jonathan looked uncomfortable. Blood magic. She's been sacrificing challengers, using their life force to strengthen her hold over the pack. That's what awaited you and Neo if I hadn't intervened. Neo's expression darkened. Blood magic corrupts the natural order. It explains the wrongness I sensed in Frederick. He's bound to her will through these rituals. I thought of Frederick as he once was, arrogant and ambitious, yes, but with a core of honor, a genuine desire to protect and lead his pack. If he had become a puppet to Victoria's dark magic, the pack I'd once loved was in even greater danger than I'd realized. I'm going back, I decided. Tonight. Neo studied me carefully. A challenge under the full moon, with your powers still settling. It's risky. Victoria won't fight fair, neither will I replied, feeling the new strength in my transformed body. She threatened what's mine. She corrupted my mate. She would have murdered us without hesitation. I turned to Jonathan. Will you stand with me or against me? He lowered his eyes, a gesture of submission I'd only ever seen directed toward Frederick. I'll stand with the true alpha of Silver Crescent. If that's you, then my loyalty is yours. The moon had nearly reached its zenith as we approached the main clearing where the pack would be gathered for the height of their moon run. Even from a distance, I could sense something wrong in the energies pulsing through the forest, a discordant note in what should have been the wild harmony of pack bonds. Victoria's ritual, Neo murmured, evidently sensing it too. She's using the power of the full moon to strengthen her hold over the pack. Jonathan led us to a vantage point overlooking the clearing. Below, the entire pack had gathered in a massive circle. At its center stood Frederick and Victoria, both in their human forms while the rest of the pack remained as wolves. Victoria was chanting in a language I didn't recognize, her hands moving in intricate patterns above a stone altar that hadn't been there during my time with the pack. Blood altar, Neo explained grimly. She's binding them all to her will, not just Frederick. I scanned the assembled wolves, noticing their unnaturally still postures, eyes fixed on Victoria with a devotion that went beyond normal pack loyalty. Among them, I spotted Eliza, her silver-gray fur distinctive even at a distance. Unlike the others, she seemed to be fighting the spell, her body trembling with the effort to break free of Victoria's influence. We need to disrupt the ritual, Neo said urgently. Once complete, it will be nearly impossible to break her hold over them. I nodded, the plan forming instinctively as my new instincts merged with my human strategic thinking. Jonathan, circle around to the eastern edge of the clearing. When I confront them, get to Eliza. She's resisting. She'll help you protect any others who break free of Victoria's control. Jonathan nodded and melted into the forest, moving with the stealth of a born wolf. And me? Neo asked. I turned to him, seeing not just an ally, but something more. a connection I didn't yet fully understand, but felt with bone-deep certainty. Stay close. Watch for Victoria's tricks. She won't surrender easily. He touched my face gently, his fingers tracing the new angles of my transformed features. I've waited centuries for someone like you to emerge. I won't lose you now. The intimate gesture and the weight of history in his words sent a shiver through me, but there was no time to explore what it meant. Below, Victoria's chanting had reached a crescendo, her voice carrying unnaturally through the night air. Now, I said, and stepped out from our cover. I approached the clearing openly, making no attempt at stealth. Power radiated from me with each step, announcing my presence more effectively than any challenge could. Heads turned, wolves whining in confusion, as their enchanted state was disrupted by the presence of something their instincts recognized as more dominant than the alpha they were bound to. Victoria noticed the disturbance spreading through the pack and looked up, her chanting faltering as she saw me. Her eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with calculation. "Impossible," she hissed. "You should be dead." Frederick turned, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief as he took in my transformed appearance. "Lucia? What are you?" I stepped into the center of the clearing, moonlight bathing me as it reached its zenith directly overhead. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The midnight hour of the full moon amplifying my newly awakened powers to their peak. "I am what I was always meant to be," I answered, my voice carrying to every corner of the clearing. "The true Alpha Queen of Silver Crescent." Victoria's laugh was brittle. "Alpha Queen? You're just a freak of nature, a mutation, an aberration that should never have existed." "Is that why you feared me enough to order my execution?" I asked, moving closer. "Because deep down, you recognized what I truly am?" "I fear nothing," Victoria snarled, but her hand moved to the ritual dagger at her hip, betraying her unease. I addressed the pack, my gaze sweeping over the assembled wolves. "You've been deceived, bound by blood magic against your will. This woman has corrupted your alpha, twisted pack law, and violated the sacred trust between a leader and those they protect." Murmurs and whines spread through the gathering as my words penetrated the fog of Victoria's enchantment. Some wolves shook their heads as if trying to clear them, while others growled, torn between Victoria's magical hold and their response to my natural authority. "Enough!" Victoria shouted. She grabbed Frederick's arm, pressing the ritual dagger to his throat. "One more step, and I'll slit your precious mate's throat." Frederick stood unnaturally still, his eyes glazed and unfocused. Whatever control Victoria had over him went bone deep. "He's not my mate anymore," I replied calmly. "You've seen to that. But he is still the Alpha of Silver Crescent, bound by blood and oath to protect this pack. And you've violated that oath through him." Victoria's smile was cruel. "He's mine now. Body, mind, and soul. As is this pack." She pressed the blade harder against Frederick's throat, drawing a thin line of blood. "Back away, or watch him die." From the corner of my eye, I saw Neo circling behind them, moving with predatory grace. Jonathan had reached Eliza, who had shifted back to human form, and was helping other pack members break free of Victoria's spell. I needed to keep Victoria distracted. "You won't kill him," I said confidently. "You need him. Without Frederick, you have no legitimate claim to Silver Crescent. You're just an outsider who tried to steal what wasn't hers." Rage flashed across Victoria's perfect features. "I earned my place. I gave him strength when he was weak, purpose when he was lost after you left." "After he rejected me," I corrected. "And now I understand why. You were already in his life, weren't you? Already whispering in his ear, using your blood magic to turn him against me. You saw what I could become, and you feared it." Victoria's composure cracked further. "You were nothing, a defective mate who couldn't even shift. I gave him a real alpha female, someone worthy of standing beside him. And yet here you are, hiding behind him, using him as a shield." I took another step forward. "If you're so worthy, face me directly. Alpha female to alpha female. No magic, no tricks. Just the old way." It was a calculated risk. Victoria's pride wouldn't allow her to back down from a direct challenge, but her instincts had to be screaming that I was more dangerous than she'd anticipated. For a long moment, she hesitated, the dagger still at Frederick's throat. Then, with a snarl of defiance, she shoved him aside and lunged at me, the ritual blade aimed at my heart. I moved with my new lichen speed, sidestepping her attack and catching her wrist. The contact was electric. I could feel the dark magic coursing through her, corrupting what had once been a normal wolf. Victoria screamed, more in outrage than pain, and twisted in my grip, her free hand slashing at my face with claws that extended from her human fingers. Unlike a normal werewolf, she wasn't fully shifting. Instead, she was using blood magic to cherry-pick aspects of her wolf form, while remaining mostly human. It was an abomination of the natural order, and I could sense the toll it took on her life force. "You're killing yourself with this magic," I told her as we grappled. "It's consuming you from within." "Worth it," she hissed, her eyes wild. "Power is always worth the price." She broke free of my grip and circled me, her movements unnaturally quick. The pack had formed a ring around us, instinctively recognizing the challenge for what it was, a fight for dominance, for the right to lead. Victoria attacked again, this time with a flurry of magically enhanced blows that would have overwhelmed a normal opponent. But I was no longer normal. My lichen reflexes anticipated each strike, my transformed body absorbing impacts that would have shattered human bones. With each exchange, I felt my control over my new form improving, instinct and conscious thought merging into a fluid whole. Victoria was strong and skilled, but she was fighting against her own nature, forcing transformations that should have come naturally. The strain showed in the sweat beading on her forehead, in the tremor of her overexerted muscles. "You can't win," I told her as I blocked another strike. "The magic is consuming your strength faster than you can use it." "I don't need to win," she spat, blood flecking her lips. "I just need to complete the ritual." Her eyes flicked to the stone altar, where the moonlight now struck directly through a carefully positioned opening in the forest canopy. Understanding dawned. The confrontation, the challenge. It was all part of her plan. She needed a blood sacrifice at the height of the full moon to complete her hold over the pack. My blood. As if sensing my realization, Victoria smiled, her beauty twisting into something monstrous, the blood of a lichen. "Do you know what power that holds? With it, I'll bind not just Silver Crescent, but every pack for 100 miles. She launched herself at me with renewed fury, no longer trying to defeat me, but to wound me, to draw the blood she needed for her ritual. Her dagger sliced through the air, missing my throat by inches as I jerked backward. In her single-minded focus on her goal, Victoria had made a critical error. She'd forgotten about Neo. He materialized behind her, catching her knife arm in a grip that made her cry out in pain. "Now, Lucia!" he shouted. "End this!" Victoria struggled in Neo's grasp, her free hand clawing at him, drawing blood that hissed and steamed where it touched his skin. Whatever Neo was, his blood held power of its own. I hesitated for a fraction of a second. Despite everything Victoria had done, despite the lives she'd taken and the suffering she'd caused, killing in cold blood wasn't who I wanted to be as Alpha. Victoria saw my hesitation and laughed. "Weak. Still so weak. This is why you never deserved to lead." Her body suddenly convulsed, her back arching unnaturally as she channeled a massive surge of dark energy. Neo was thrown backward, landing hard several yards away. Victoria turned to me, her eyes now completely black. Her skin stretched tight over her skull as the magic consumed her from within. "If I can't have this pack," she snarled, her voice distorted and hollow, "no one will." She raised the ritual dagger high, but not to strike at me. Instead, she turned toward Frederick, who still stood motionless, caught in her spell. The intent was clear, to kill him, breaking the pack bonds in the most devastating way possible, leaving Silver Crescent leaderless and vulnerable. I moved without conscious thought, my lichen speed carrying me across the distance between us before the dagger could fall. My hand closed around her wrist, stopping the blade inches from Frederick's heart. "Enough," I said, and there was power in the word, not magic, but something older, more fundamental. The power of an alpha protecting what was hers. Victoria struggled against my grip, pouring what remained of her life force into one final effort to break free. I felt the dark energy surge through her, seeking a path to destruction. With my free hand, I grasped my mother's pendant, which still hung at my throat. "Trust what's inside," I whispered, remembering my mother's words. The pendant pulsed with light, bright enough to illuminate the entire clearing. Where it touched Victoria's skin, the darkness within her recoiled, hissing like water on hot metal. Her black eyes widened in terror. "No," she gasped. "You can't." "I can," I said simply. "And I will." I pressed the pendant against her heart, channeling my will through it, not to destroy her, but to cleanse the corruption that had consumed her. Victoria screamed, a sound of both agony and release as the dark magic was forcibly purged from her body. She collapsed to her knees, the ritual dagger falling from nerveless fingers. Around us, the pack shuddered collectively as Victoria's hold over them broke. Wolves shifted back to human form, disoriented but free. Frederick gasped as if surfacing from deep water, his eyes clearing as awareness returned. "Lucia," he whispered, seeing me clearly for the first time. What's happened to you?" Before I could answer, Victoria made one final, desperate lunge for the fallen dagger. Jonathan, now in human form, kicked it beyond her reach. She collapsed again, her strength finally exhausted. "It's over, Victoria," I said. "The pack is free of your influence." She looked up at me, hatred burning in eyes that were now their natural blue again. "Kill me, then. That's what a true alpha would do to a challenger." I shook my head. "No, that's what you would do. I'm offering something else." I extended my hand to her. "Redemption. The chance to heal, to find your way back to what a wolf should be." Victoria stared at my offered hand in disbelief. "Why would you show mercy after everything I've done?" "Because that's the kind of alpha I choose to be," I replied. "One who leads through strength, not fear. Through compassion, not cruelty." For a moment, I thought she might accept. Something flickered in her eyes, perhaps the memory of who she had been before the dark magic had corrupted her. Then her expression hardened again. "I choose death over your pity." She spat, and before anyone could stop her, she threw herself onto the ritual dagger that Jonathan had missed in the darkness. The blade pierced her heart, and she smiled as blood spread across her chest. "My final sacrifice," she whispered. "My final curse." Her body convulsed once, then went still, the last of her life force draining away. As she died, a ripple of dark energy pulsed outward from her body, seeking a new host. It swirled around the clearing before converging on the stone altar, which cracked down the middle with a sound like thunder. The dark magic Victoria had accumulated dispersed, returning to the earth and sky, where natural forces would eventually neutralize it. Silence fell over the clearing as the pack processed what they had witnessed. I turned to face them, aware that this was a moment of decision for all of us. Frederick approached slowly, his expression a complex mixture of emotions: shame, relief, confusion, and something that might have been regret. "Lucia," he said softly, I don't know how to begin to apologize. The things I did, the things I said while under her influence, were still your choices," I finished for him. "Victoria's magic may have clouded your judgment, but the seeds were already there, Frederick. The ambition, the willingness to sacrifice who you loved for power." He lowered his eyes, unable to deny the truth. "What happens now? Will you challenge me for alpha?" The question hung in the air, the entire pack waiting for my answer. I looked around at the faces watching us, some familiar, some new, all bearing the marks of years under corrupted leadership. "No," I said finally. "I won't challenge you, Frederick." Relief washed over his features, quickly followed by confusion. "I don't understand. Silver Crescent is your pack. Leading it is your responsibility, one you need to rediscover without Victoria's influence." I stepped closer, my transformed presence making him instinctively straighten. "But know this, I will be watching, and if you stray from the path of a true alpha again, I will return. And next time, I won't be so merciful." Murmurs spread through the gathered pack members as they processed my decision. Neo appeared at my side, his expression questioning. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "Silver Crescent was my home once, But my path leads elsewhere now. I turned to him. You spoke of other lichens, of the old bloodlines. I need to understand what I've become, what it means for my future. Eliza pushed through the crowd, now fully dressed and composed once more. You're leaving again? She asked. Disappointment clear in her voice. For now, I confirmed. But not forever. And not alone this time. I looked to Jonathan, who stood respectfully nearby. Silver Crescent needs strength during this transition. Frederick will need a beta he can trust, someone to help him rebuild what Victoria destroyed. Jonathan nodded, understanding my unspoken request. I'll ensure the pack returns to its true traditions, to honor, loyalty, and protection of all members, regardless of their abilities. As dawn approached, ending the longest night of my life, I stood at the border of Silver Crescent territory with Neo beside me. Behind us, the pack was beginning the process of healing, of rebuilding what had been broken. Frederick had formally apologized before the council for his actions under Victoria's influence, and had sworn to make amends. It wasn't a perfect ending. There was too much pain, too much history for that, but it was a beginning. Where will we go? I asked Neo as we prepared to leave. He smiled, taking my hand in his. There's a gathering place in the mountains to the north. Other lichens. Not many, but enough to help you understand your heritage, your potential. And from there, he shrugged. Wherever you choose, the world opens differently to our kind. I touched my mother's pendant, now cool against my skin once more. She knew. All along she knew what I would become. She hoped. Neo corrected gently. The old blood doesn't always awaken, even under ideal circumstances. Your mother protected you as best she could, gave you what guidance she could before her time ended. I looked back one last time at the forest that had been my childhood home, my prison, and now the site of my rebirth. The rising sun gilded the treetops with golden light, promising a new day. Ready? Neo asked. I nodded, feeling the power of my transformed self flowing smoothly through my veins, no longer burning but warming me from within. The fire hadn't consumed me. I had mastered it, shaped it, made it truly mine. Ready, I confirmed. Together, we stepped beyond the border stones, leaving Silver Crescent behind, not as a rejected mate, not as a wolfless outcast, but as something new and ancient all at once. A lichen, a queen without a throne, for now. But as the forest embraced us and the path unfolded before us, I knew with bone-deep certainty that my journey wasn't ending. It was just beginning, and this time I would write my